What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Horseshoe. My name is Matt, and with Quenton Nelson being out for 5 to 12 weeks, who is somebody who could step in as a potential starter until Quenton Nelson returns? So for me personally, I don't see Indy going to free agency to find the replacement for Quenton Nelson until he returns. I think they're going to stick to whoever they have on the roster right now. And I have three guys that could potentially take over for Quenton Nelson until he returns. So the first person I'm going to talk about is Will Fries, the rookie from Penn State. Now, I know there's probably some people saying there's no way he could be a starter right now over some of the guys we have on roster. He's a 7th round draft pick. The best he'll do is special teams. And I would normally agree with you guys on that. However, if you look at his tape from Penn State, he actually does a pretty good job. Now, am I saying that he was one of the best offensive linemen from last year's draft class? No, I'm not saying that at all. But I think he's a pretty solid offensive lineman that you could plug in whenever you have somebody go out with an injury. Now, am I saying this guy is ready to be a full-time starter in the NFL? Not yet, but I do think when you have something like Quenton Nelson getting hurt, or let's say Mark Alinsky got hurt at some point, right? I think Will Fries is somebody you could throw in there until those guys return. Now, Quenton Nelson definitely could return by week 1. I'm not saying that he's definitely out for a few weeks. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if he is out, I think Will Fries could do a pretty good job. Now, what's going to hurt his chances of being the starter for our team is who we play the first few weeks of the season. Now, again, Quenton Nelson could be back, and then we have nothing to worry about when it comes to who's going to be in the left guard until he returns. So he could definitely be back by week 1. But if he isn't back by week 1, I think the fact that the Colts are playing the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Titans the first 3 games of the season is going to really hurt Will Fries' chance to be the starter. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but he is an option for the Colts if they feel like they need to go to him. So the next person I'm going to talk about is Danny Pinter. Now, I thought Danny Pinter, when he came in last year, did a pretty good job. I thought he held his own, and he honestly made me feel confident that if we had somebody go down and he stepped in for them, it made me confident that he would do a good job. Now, he could play left tackle, left guard, center, right tackle, right guard. He could play it all. So if any of our guys goes down, Danny Pinter could come in and play for them. Now, what's going to hurt Danny Pinter's chances of actually being the starter until Quenton Nelson returns, if Quenton Nelson is actually going to miss week 1 and, so forth, what's going to hurt his chances is the experience in the NFL. I think if the Colts schedule started out with the Jets, the Jags, some easy teams like that, if that was how the schedule started and Quenton Nelson was going to be out for a few games, then yes, I think Danny Pinter would have a much better chance of starting. However, when you have the Seahawks, the Rams, the Titans, the Dolphins as your first 4 games, I don't really see Danny Pinter having as good of a chance to start as some other players might on our team right now. I think Danny Pinter could potentially start because he did show that he could play pretty well against a good defense with the Steelers. Steelers had a good defensive line. Not as good as it was earlier in the season because they did have some injuries. Bud Dupree, for example, was hurt, I believe, when the Steelers played the Colts. But still, he does have experience playing against good defensive lines. So, if we were going to put in Danny Pinter, I would feel fine with it. But again, him against Aaron Donald absolutely scares me. Like most guys in our offensive line going up against Aaron Donald would scare me. The only guys I would not really be afraid of seeing going up against Aaron Donald is a healthy Eric Fisher and Quenton Nelson. And odds are that's not going to happen unless Quenton Nelson is back by week 1 or week 2. So the last person I'm going to talk about today is Chris Reed. Now, obviously, Chris Reed was picked up by the Colts during the free agency, and Chris Reed also does have more playing experience than a Danny Pinter as well as a Will Fries. So obviously the upper hand in that situation would go to Chris Reed. Now last year, I believe Chris Reed was in a total of 892 snaps, and out of those 892 snaps, he only allowed 1 sack and had 3 penalties against him. So really, to me, I think for a backup or even a starter for some teams, he's a really nice pickup for the Colts. I think he really is. And it does give me confidence that if he's going to be out there for a Quenton Nelson or Mark Galinsky, hopefully not the case at all, but if he is, I do feel confident that he can play well. So I do think just with his experience in the NFL, that's going to give him the upper edge over at Danny Pinter as well as a Will Fries. Because you got to remember, we have a really difficult start to the season. I think you want to have somebody who is as experienced as a Chris Reed in there versus somebody who's as experienced as Danny Pinter and as Will Fries. It just makes sense because the Rams is going to be a very difficult team. When you have Aaron Donald lining up against you, you want the guy who has the most experience to go up against him, unless you have somebody who is as good as Quenton Nelson, because at that point, you obviously want Quenton Nelson to be your starter. So, for me, when I look at the whole situation, when I look at just where the Colts are right now, who they're playing against, if Quenton Nelson is going to miss any time at all, and he could be back in a few weeks, he could be back before week 1, but he could be back a little later. So if he's back a little later, the guy I believe the Colts are going to go with as the starter is Chris Reed. To me, it makes the most sense. He has the most experience. He's a pretty solid, offensive lineman. I think really if you're going to find somebody to replace Quenton Nelson until he returns, you got a guy. It's Chris Reed. I think he's better than anybody else they could pick up in free agency, and I think he's a better option than what we have right now on the roster. I don't think Danny Pinter's bad. I don't think Will Fries is bad, but you got to go with experience, especially if Quenton Nelson is going to miss those first few games, because those first few games are going to be so important, and we need to make sure whether it's Jacob Eason or Carson Wentz, they're going to be protected. So that's going to be it for today. I'll have another video up later today, or it's already up right now. I don't know when I'm going to upload this one, but thank you anyway for watching. If you're new, I would greatly appreciate it if you would click that subscribe button. It'd be awesome if you would do so. Also, click the bell icon so you're notified whenever a video goes up, as well as when we go live on here. If you like this video, smack the like button. And again, let me know in the comments below on your thoughts on who is going to take over for Quenton Nelson until he returns, if he's even out when week 1 gets here. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Matt. Bleed blue, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like it, make sure you watch one of these other 2 videos. They're cool. Also, if you're new, please click the subscribe button as well as the bell icon. I greatly appreciate your support.